Hey guys, BJ the Brave here. Puppets are back, baby. We have finally had the balance patch, and there are obviously two classes that have benefited significantly. There weren't that many changes, but the ones that have benefited are Dragon and Portal. And specifically within Portal, it's the puppets. And that's the first one I was keen to try. So in this video, I'm going to take you through my puppet deck, which I already feel like is just so much better. So much better. I do think it struggles with decks like Mode Abyss, right, where they can basically heal when you kind of Orcus, and they can outlast you in the end game because of things like the mode ability with some Nature and stuff. So, you know, there are definitely tricky matchups, but it's much more competitive than it used to be. So let's jump into the deck, and then I'll show you some games as well. Okay, so we have got 3 copies of the new Puppet Cat. Remember, this used to cost 2. It's now a 1, and it's a 1/1 with Rush. But more importantly, if you can, obviously you can just play this out on turn 1, so it gives you a nice tempo. And one of the things I like about this deck is often you can get your opponent down to like 12 health just from having early tempo and getting lots and lots of chip damage. So that's definitely helped by the Puppet Cat now. But obviously, if you draw it in the later game, then if you can essentially play this out once you've Super Evo'd something, you need to Super Evo the thing and then play this out. And then what it'll do is it'll put a puppet in your hand and give it +3, which is massive, because when you play that in combination with Orcus, that's suddenly an extra 4 damage that can go face. Obviously, if you play something like Noah, that can become another 6 damage. So it really does start to rack up. So Puppet Cat, for a 1 cost investment, it's actually pretty decent now. Now, next up in the 2 slot, I've got Phil Dow. Now, the reason for the 2 Phil Dows is that what this deck does really well without needing an Evo for is it does really well at just getting rid of kind of like pretty low to mid units. Because of all the puppets. But obviously, something tall, something big, that's where you need the hard removal. And so Phil Dow just gives you a very cheap answer to that. Now, the other card that I think is worth considering generally is something like the what's it called? The Cherub. And the reason for that is that, Ruby, the Greedy Cherub. This card is a genuine consideration, so if you don't own Phil Dow, or if you want to test it, I definitely recommend testing Ruby. I have just started testing it, dropped it for the Phil Dows, but I've not played enough games to like really know whether I feel like Cherub is better. But the main logic for running Cherub is that this deck is so important to find like your Orcus, right? And because you generate a lot of spare puppets, sometimes you have to play them out just so that you don't mill your hand. And in those situations, you could just play Cherub on a puppet, for example, put it back into your deck, and potentially find a more meaningful card. So I do actually think Ruby is actually pretty good in this deck, and it may well end up making the cut. But I've stuck with Phil Dow for the guide because that's what I've used for most of my games, and it's worked just fine. But that is definitely a consideration for you. All right, so other than that, we have got, as you'd expect, 3 copies of Puppet Lancer, 3 copies of Lovestruck Puppet. These cards are instrumental to our early game, right? In terms of dominating the board, being able to remove. Puppet Lancer giving you an enhanced puppet is like a really good way of getting rid of the enemy 3-drop, not UD. What's it called? It gives you the crest. It's really late here, guys. I can't recall names or anything at the minute. Don't know what's going on. We'll come back to that. But generally speaking, these two just do a great job dominating the early game. Puppet Theatre is also great. What I find with Puppet Theatre is one game I hate it and it's annoying, the next game I love it. And what I mean by that is that it can obviously end up meaning that you completely fill your hand. And there's always this kind of like balancing act of wanting to have extra puppets and trying to buff them with Noah and trying to get Orcus off with them, and not having a hand full of just puppets and then it being like Orcus all in and then nothing. So you do need to use them. You need to be not too scared to use them. But the puppet, I found that 2 is good. Originally started with 3, but I think it might be too much. So I think 2 is plenty, to be honest. Now we've got 2 copies of Gilna Lease because it's one of the... It's actually one of the few alternative win cons in this deck, right? Like if your Orcus, your Liam, and your Odins, for example, don't win the game, or they haven't shown up on time, then Gilneas is an is a secondary win con which you can play out on turn 10, and of course it's one of our main sources of healing as well. We do have 2 copies of Medical Grade Assassin. I feel mixed on this. It's kind of similar logic to Fildau though, which is that what do we do when we need to kill something big? And Medical Grade Assassin does allow us to kill something big without using an evolution. So, I mean, you could drop, if you were going to drop the Fildaus, you could run a 3rd copy of Medical Grade Assassin. The only thing I don't like with the Med Grade is that it does put an Enhanced Puppet, which costs you a further 1. So you have to remember, if you don't have any puppets in hand, it will cost you 4 if you want to actually remove something. Obviously, if you've already got a puppet in hand, you can play a Med Grade Assassin, just use a 0 cost 1/1, and that's absolutely fine. I still like this card. I think it's important. But getting the balance right, you know, as I said, for now I'm doing 2 and 2, but you let me know what you think in the comments. 3 copies of UD. I really like UD. I think UD's great. It's a 3-drop that replaces itself, right? Obviously, drawing a card. You can use the crest to heal in a pinch or to draw in a pinch. It's very rare, but occasionally I do it. But you know, a 3 cost that is 3/3 stats and drawing a card. I really love UD. I think it's fantastic. Next up, we got the Puppet Shield, another card that I think is a little bit underappreciated. I really like the Puppet Shield. I think again having that kind of like just 6 damage removal for 3 is pretty awesome. And also, if you've got board states where, for example, you got something like Zwei. You can, and even things like Orcus with the coin, right? Sometimes on turn 10 you can do that. But with Zwei, obviously they stay on and they become ward units as well. But mainly it's just really quite powerful removal for only 3 cost. Speaking of which, I like the Wired Assault. This is a fairly new card, and it's the standard 4-drop hard removal. Like every class has got one, but this one gives us 2 copies of Puppet, so playing into our game plan. Again, if you did want to drop the Fildau's, you could put a 3rd Wired Assault and a 3rd Medical Grade Assassin. But Fildau does give you the 2/2 on 2, and it does give you cheaper removal in terms of play points, albeit it does cost you an Evo. So we're trying to go for a lot of kind of bit of balance, really, a bit of a range of options. I have to say, I think Zwei is much better now. Like, again, you don't always Evo, but you can, you know, you can Evo now and get this enhanced puppet, which is a big deal. And also, she's quite good, like, if you do have too many puppets and you have to just play them out. I find that playing them out on the turn you play Zwei is pretty useful, because at least then they're not just played out and die, like, they actually have a use, right, because they get the ward. But yeah, overall, I think Zwei's much improved, and she's kind of your mid gear. I still don't, I don't know, like, you don't always need to use the Evo, and often when you don't, it's nothing too staggering, but, you know, I think it is still a key card. Now, in the 6 drops, I recommend, like, a couple of copies of Noah. I think Noah's still really good. Noah's quite good when you've, like, expended your, you know, your Evo and your Super Evo points, and you're thinking, now what am I going to do? And Noah's another way of getting, like, pretty good value. Also a really good way of just buffing some of the, some of your puppets before you play Orcus, which means you then have more face damage. Or just for kind of removing, you know, good tempo boards, basically, as you build up to your win cons. So Noah's quite flexible. Obviously, one of the main challenges with Noah is when your hand is really full, right? And so sometimes you have to play and go, do you know what? It doesn't matter, I'm an overdraw, because I've already got my Orcus in hand, I've already got my Liam in hand. I don't care, like, what am I going to draw? I'm not going to draw anything that matters. So it's always a little bit of a kind of like, got to think ahead and a bit of a risk with Noah, but I still think the card's good and worthy of at least 2 slots in the deck. I think 3 might be too much, but I think 2 is quite nice. Now, Sylvia is a 3 of, in my opinion. Still think this card's fantastic. It's lost a little bit of its pizzazz since, panache or whatever the word is, since set 1. Like, other cards have definitely caught it up in power level. But it's still really good, right? Like, the fact that without Evoing, you can just play this with a good body, draw 2 cards, or heal, is still a really nice fanfare ability. And obviously, if you do want to invest the Evo or Super Evo, in a pinch, it can help you, right? Because you can Evo, destroy something, and then charge something, so it's 2 things you kill, or 3 with a Super Evo. You do have to be very careful with your, particularly Super Evos in this deck. You really want to be saving them for Orcus. Orcus is easily the MVP of this deck. Make no mistake, I know Liam got a buff, but Orcus is by far the best card. And what I find is usually like, if you draw Orcus, you'll win. If you don't draw Orcus, you won't win. It's that pivotal, and that's another reason why having something like Ruby might be important. I do think Odin is probably a very, very close second best card in the deck. It's really, really great. It leads nicely into the Orcus. It's the only 7-drop we've got, so it bridges those really good, powerful 6-drops into the Orcus. I think Odin's phenomenal and does good in the current meta, right? Like dealing with Wilberts, dealing with, you know, even just your God Staffs and you, whatever the 3-drop other artifact is now that everyone's playing that just thins the deck to 1 copy each. I mean, there's many targets for Odin, right? And what I like with Odin as well is knowing that we've got Orcus next turn, we can drop Odin, we can put you know, somewhere between 6 and 8 damage usually on face, and that really then makes Orcus threat and lethal. So yeah, really, really key card. I wouldn't leave home without 3 copies of them. And last but not least, we got the new Liam. Now you could run 3 copies for sure. I run 2. The main reason for 3 copies would just be the absolute consistency of having it. But I do find that, you know, Liam is for 9 much better priced, and I do find that it's really good with the Evo. Usually you want to play out another puppet with Liam to make sure that you get the full kind of 4 puppets down, which is essentially 8 damage when they die. But without the Evo, I find that it's not amazing. I mean, it's okay, but it's not amazing. So yeah, I think 2 copies is probably, you know, it's probably enough. So that's the deck, guys. You really want to be drawing your early cards, and you want to be kind of controlling the game, trying to keep your health as high as possible. If you do need to heal, don't be scared to use a Gilnelise or a Sylvia for heal. And then obviously go into your build up a few puppets, go into your Orcus turns, and then Liam for the win. Now, what I will say is that Orcus is so pivotal that you would keep him in your mulligan. I would never throw an Orcus away. I don't care what I'm playing, like, because it's like so pivotal to your win con. Like, I don't know, like if I think about any of the major decks of recent, I can't think of a card that's just more central. Like, if you don't draw Orcus, I've had a couple of games where I just didn't draw it and I just lost basically. So I would keep Orcus in your opening hand no matter what. And then it's a matter of what you're playing, but obviously things like Puppet Lancer and Lovestruck Puppeteer are really, really good. Lancer maybe not so good into things like Forestcraft, and maybe even in the mirror match. Although, to be honest, even in the mirror match, like, you know, getting the enhanced Puppet 3 then to kill the UD or the Lovestruck Puppeteer, it's not bad. So yeah, they're the main ones really in the early game. I often keep UD as well, but again, only if I've got the Orcus. I'm really looking for that. For sure. The other one as well is against Haven. Sometimes keeping Odin's pretty good because it's just so good to have that answer to a Wilbert. So yeah, let's jump into some games and see how the deck gets on. Alrighty, so we got Portal. Probably expecting a few mirrors at this stage, to be honest. I think I just got excited here and just thought, you know what? We've got that kind of late game win con curve. Let's go. Sadly, he traded my cat, which means that I can't kill his Lovestruck Puppeteer, which we'd have been able to do. So we see here, this guy has got the idea of using Ruby. I definitely want to try that more. But actually, as I sort of said in the opening, like, this guy here on 3 is pretty good. Even if it's just killing a 2-2, it's not bad. He's going to return the favour. I think we're just going to drop UD here. And we will use the puppet. Okay, it's his first Evo used, which we're kind of happy to see because, like, you know, his health was good anyway, so it's not like the healing has done a right lot. We can even just leave it, right? Because it's like, he's not He's not doing a ton. But he does play the Zwei, and he actually evos us here. And one other thing about the proactive evo in this way is that you do get yourself a 3/3 ward, which is quite a big difference. That's quite a big difference to how Zwei used to work. You know, the 3/3 having ward is obviously massive in terms of the amount of health you've got to get through to kill Zwei. So we are absolutely throwing out our puppets at that. And also because we've got 2 theatres down, we are refilling our hand pretty nicely with puppets anyway. So I thought about this for a while, and in the end I did go face. And like, he's used his evos, right? So Super Evo coming down here on Orcus. Now we are incredibly low on health at this point. And it's looking like really, really unfavorable. Obviously we have banked a lot of puppets for Orcus. So the key here is we need to really keep Lloyd up. But, you know, anything like a Odin, for example, and it's kind of like GG. But it's one of those games where you sort of play to an out, right? You look at this turn here and you're like, well, either he wins now or we win next. It's kind of that simple. And one of the problems that this deck can have is you can just end up with like these like dud hands, really. Like, look, he's got a hand full of cards. It's all these puppets and it is a deck where you get to a point where you just need your win cons, you know? Like all this garbage, all this junk is brilliant as you're leading up the curve, but once you hit kind of like turn 7, 8, you just want your win cons. So it's a kind of unique deck in that way. Alrighty, so let's check it out against Sword. So we are going to play the puppet out again. Just want to contest Sword's tempo. I think we'll go first with the cat. I definitely like having it as a 1-drop 1/1. Feels like it's actually legit got like a home now. The thing I think is weird about it is that it's not a puppet. It's called a puppet cat, but I don't think it counts as a puppet in terms of the tag. The things like with the med grade assassin, it won't. You know, even though it's got rush, it won't actually auto-kill things. So what we're able to do here is kind of like, by playing and choosing the lines we're doing, is just get a bit of chip damage on. Now this is where I quite like Noah. Yeah, these type of these Zirconia boards, Noah's just so good because the 3 that he brings out kind of deal with the 2/2s, and then if you want to Evo Noah, you will actually clear the buffed Zirconia and still be alive. Obviously, he had a unit down. Normally, it'd only be 2 guys with it as well, so. Now he's got Sincero in hand, so we know that that's coming, but our health is good at the minute. So we're going to play out the second Noah. Kind of do a similar thing. And the chip damage is real, right? We got him down to 12 now. There's still no sign of Orcus. And I think we're getting Sincero here. So what are we down to 9, are we? Or did he have 3 on that, or? No, he had the 4. Yeah, so we're down to 9. So here we're actually going to Super Evo, and we're going to play the cat and get the new ability. So here you'll see, look, it puts the puppet in hand with the +3, which is great. UD clears, and UD obviously, we get the ability which draws us a card, and now we start to find our Orcuses. Sadly, we are getting very, very low on health, indeed. However, with Monsieur Orcus and the extremely, sublimely buffed puppets, that should be all she wrote. GG. Game against Dragon. Now you see we keep Orcus in the opening hand. We're not getting rid. It kind of feels weird. Like in most decks, you would throw an 8-drop away, right? But in this deck, it's just so pivotal. And we have so many cards that are early cost units, like with the removal of the puppets, that you can be somewhat confident that you'll find answers in the early game. Always good to see UD on 3. Getting that proactive body and drawing through your deck. Feels good. So we're just going to play out both Love-Struck puppets, replace them with a normal puppet in our hand. And this gives us a great board early. This is like a phenomenal early start that you're looking for. And look at this, guys. Look at this. He's got the new double Lufeng combo going off. He's up to 10. He's up to 10 player points, guys. His next turn, he has 10 player points. So that's pretty scary. Now, obviously, we have got Wincons in hand, but we just need to... we need to worry about getting there, because we know he's got 10 player points. Now, he plays Fenny. Now, we've got one more turn to kind of, like, hold out. It actually makes our stuff more expensive. So what we do is we use the coin to basically just play Odin and kill the amulet, because knowing that next turn, when the costs return to normal, obviously we'll be on turn 8, so we can go off with Orcus. So this wasn't actually all in all too bad a thing, to be honest. Second Fenny. So now we know he's getting the rest of his deck pretty much for free. But he is on 9. And that's the other thing with the theatre, by the way. You need to time it. You need to think about when you play the theatre, because you don't want that on board when you play Orcus. You want an empty board. Indeed, I kind of thought about playing the new card that would give us like a white palm, black palm, white palm, black palm. But again, we don't want to do that because we don't want to clutter the board with amulets in this deck. We want full room. And there we go, guys. Voila. Okay, so we got Portal again. So I kept one puppet and basically dug hard for Orcus. Let's bring down that Love-Struck. Nice timing. Now this is the card I was thinking of, Grimnir. This is where I think Puppet Lancers are really good. It's just such a nice way of taking out that and allowing you to kind of continue your chip damage from your 2-drop. Neither of us had anything going on that turn. We could have dropped the puppet cat, but... Okay, he's Evo and his puppet cat. Wow. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And again, we chose Yudi there. Zvai's not great in the mirror, especially at this stage, because he's just going to kind of like die to puppets with the 6-1. And obviously we needed to dig. We need to find Orcus, so that's why we went for the Yudi play. Sylvia's very good, by the way, against Zvai. Zvai's obviously hiding behind all these warded units, and Sylvia can just snipe her, which I do think is pretty cool. And then Puppet can just clear out the Victoria, and the other one just dies anyway, right? All of a sudden. Like, the benefit of having the 3-3 ward is completely lost against that. So it's a good thing to think about. I don't think Zvai's great in the mirror. Now it's our turn. We're just going to drop Phil down. And really, we're just buying time here. Like, we're not too interested in... Okay, he gets his cat off, so that's pretty nice. And then the Grimnir killed... He tidied up that board really well, though. But obviously, our early chip damage put us in a really good place to go off with Orcus. Now, we did unfortunately have to use all of our puppets, so we couldn't pull off a kind of like win combo here, but we're going down to 4 now. Don't forget, he has got the buffed puppet cat. Sorry, the buffed puppet from the puppet cat. So we know that that is in his hand, and here it is. And that puts us down to 4 as well. But this is where I think the Odins are just superb in this deck. Because after you've done all your shenanigans, it's just really, really easy then to finish it off if you've got an Odin. GG. All right, so there you go, guys. That is the new Puppet deck in action. I have to say that I think the buffs have been excellent for this archetype. It was one that was very much like lagging behind. And I think there's a few cards that we can definitely play around with, and we can definitely test out a little bit more with this archetype. I am kind of curious what would make another win condition. And that's definitely something I want to try and think about. Maybe something like Dogged One. Could have good synergy with like Gilnalise as well, because you can Super Evo a Dogged One, then you can Gilnalise the Dogged One for more reach and things like that. I'm not sure, but overall I think this archetype's got a lot more potential now. I still think it's going to struggle with a couple of the top tier decks, but I could see this fitting into a kind of about a tier 2, maybe sort of mid tier 2 at the minute. But either way, it's a lot of fun to play. And I like the fact that it's kind of like got a chance against everything. I think that's something that always feels good with Puppet. And that it feels quite nice to play because you've kind of got cards that can deal with your opponent's board without you having to spend an Evo point. So that also feels pretty cool. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you're finding the changes so far, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that. Like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this one, then check out this video next. Ciao for now.